Today was supposed to be, I don't know, sort of a victory lap for our next guest and her colleagues. She worked for months to bring together a bipartisan coalition of senators and representatives, both parties, as I said, to pass the largest housing affordability bill in decades. But like everything else, whatever goes to the Oval Office goes to die. And at least as of the moment, it has not been signed, but who knows? She'll tell us. Joining us now at the library desk is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Senator, thank you very, very, very much for coming in. You're big fans out here, obviously. You know, we're going to get to the housing bill in just a second, but we talked to our listeners earlier about the Supreme Court's decision on temporary protected status. It's going to mean that basically Haitians, and we're the third largest Haitian community in the country, Syrians, other countries are vulnerable now to being deported. What was your reaction to the Supreme Court's action?
So, partly, it's like, let me get this straight. These are people who followed the law, who were here under the law, who were told they could stay as long as it was dangerous conditions back in their home country, which it certainly is for Haitians. And now, one man just gets to turn that around. That's bad enough. But part two, the United States Supreme Court says, now, he can do that. He has a lot of power on immigration, but he doesn't get to do it if he's doing it for racial reasons. He doesn't get to do it just because this is a country that's black. You just don't get to do that. And the United States Supreme Court just stands there and says, nope, no racial animus here. I read Elena Kagan's dissent, and I thought her head might explode.
We read excerpts from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really is a big part of what's been happening in our country, and this is just the latest example, is just how many people have to line up and say, up is down, in is out, because the great leader said so. And now we have the United States Supreme Court in the most aggressive way, saying he didn't mean it. You notice they never quote what he actually said. They just kind of blur over the whole thing. And that is deeply disturbing. I mean, this is when you have your folks in to talk about oligarchy. But can we do the third part about what this is going to mean?
You may do the third and the fourth part, Senator.
And that is, our Haitian community is part of us here in Massachusetts. This is not like some other. This is us. And these are families that are woven in our families, members of our families. These are the people who are working in our healthcare system in particular, but working in all kinds of jobs around the country. And the idea that we would say, we're just going to come through and pluck out you and you and you, after you've been part of who we are and helped us build a stronger, better country, it's not just legally wrong, it is deeply morally wrong. Shame on this president and the Supreme Court that backed him up.
I just have one more question. By the way, if you weren't listening at 11 o'clock and didn't read what Elena Kagan had to say, she quoted Trump verbatim. Haiti's a S-hole country. It's filthy, dirty, disgusting, and most significantly, Haitians are, quote, poisoning the blood of the nation, same language white supremacists and Hitler used. I read a piece a couple of years ago you wrote about expanding the court. We talked to Judge Gertner about it all the time. If Democrats by 2028 control both houses and there's a Democratic president in 2029, is that an agenda item or is that just rhetoric for most of your colleagues?
No, that's an agenda
Not
item.
you, your colleagues.
Look, we get out there and talk about it because that's how you get more people into it. The first time you talk about it, look, the first time I talked with anybody about doing anything to the Supreme Court, I thought my eyelashes would frizzle. You know, I'm just like, we don't mess around with the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has messed around with us. And they're the ones who have brought this on. They no longer follow the Constitution of the United States. They no longer can even utter an honest sentence about racism. They have forfeited the kind of trust that we have placed in them. Remember those guys who stood up on Roe versus Wade? Settled law, we're done on that, we're not going back. Oh, we're not going back until we have a majority. And we can flip it over. We just passed the anniversary of the Dodd's opinion on Wednesday. So my view on this is we're going to be the party, the Democrats, who are going to stick to the Constitution. But one thing we know we can do for sure under the Constitution is that we are the ones who determine the size of the Supreme Court. 9 is not a fixed number. The size of the Supreme Court has been changed 7 times. We can go for number 8, and I am ready to do that.
We're talking to Elizabeth Warren. So, Senator, in light of the fact, based upon a phone call, it sounds like the president is your new BFF. I want to ask.
bet.
I think we can ask you about what's going on in his mind. Do you, Mike Johnson, who was humiliated or should have been humiliated the other day when he's having a press conference celebrating your legislation, when all of a sudden Trump pulls it, said yesterday after a 3-hour meeting at the White House he was sending the housing affordability bill to Trump. Do you have any information as to whether or not he's going to sign this thing?
No. And listen, don't ask me to go into Donald Trump's head. I'm not going there. I'll do a lot for my country, but not that. but let's do procedure for a minute, but we've got to talk substance. But let's do procedure for just a second. So this is now a bill that has passed the Senate 85-5. Okay, you just don't get those in the United States Senate. It passed the House by a similar overwhelming majority. 90% of the House voted in favor of this. So this is Republicans, Democrats, and the reason is because it's a damn good bill. The reason is because we have a housing crisis everywhere in America. The reason is because this is a bill that is helpful in rural areas and urban areas, all aiming toward bringing down the cost of building new units of housing, because that's our answer. You got to build more housing, and because this bill, for the first time ever, says to private equity, you do not get to come into our neighborhoods, buy up all the housing, turn us into a nation of renters. First bill ever to say no to private equity. Love this moment. And damn if we didn't get Democrats and Republicans to sign off on it. President of the United States had called me about it. This is part of how it all got started. So Monday, it does the final passage through the Senate. Tuesday evening, it passes the House. Wednesday morning, we get up. I put on my nicest jacket, ready to go. Donald Trump is going to sign this thing into law. And the fun part is, all the Republicans are out there posting about, it has my part in it about this. It has my part in it about that. I made this happen. And great. Success has many mothers, and that's how you get things done in Washington. So I'm happy about this. Democrats are posting, Republicans are posting, right up until 2 hours before the signing ceremony. Table is set up, stage is set up, the flags are all up, and Donald Trump has another tantrum. And he says he's just not going to sign it. And no reason other than he has something else that has not passed the House, has not passed the Senate, does not have majority support behind it. He says he wants to sign that instead. One more Donald Trump living in an alternative universe. So we don't know what happens.
You were going to describe process, though. What happens? There are lots of options for it to become law other than just a signature, correct?
So what's happened now, we'll whip out our constitutions to see what happens on how a bill becomes a law once it's passed the House and the Senate. Usually the president signs it. Look, damn, I thought he was going to take a victory lap, right?
Yeah.
I thought he was going to jump in front of this parade and claim all the credit for himself, which is fine. Just get it across the finish line. Now what happens is the Speaker of the House has to present to the president. Once he presents to the president, there are 3 possibilities. The president could sign it, the president could veto it, or the president could just do nothing. Someone could hide it under his desk or whatever. If he signs it, obviously it becomes law. If he vetoes it, it would come back to us. Now, we have veto-proof majorities that have already signed on, who've already voted for it. On the other hand, that would require something other than Republicans bowing down to Donald Trump. So that would be an interesting moment. Or he could just let it go. Now, Mike Johnson, there's one more twist in this.
And it becomes law if he just lets
right.
it go, yeah.
One more twist in this little mystery, and that is, how does Mike Johnson present? And at first, he claimed he hadn't presented. But as of this morning, he says he has presented. So keep an eye 10 days, we'll have an answer one way or the other.
And the president has said he's not going to sign it because he wants his SAVE Act to get through.
Not happening, baby.
Does not have the votes, and that would impact the people's ability to vote. You know, there's a lot of...
Can we stay on this for just one more
Sure.
second, the housing thing? We actually have spent a lot of time reading the contents of this thing, not the whole bill, because it's, what, 300 and some pages?
You can't read 300 and some pages, too, Jim.
One
It's
of us can, the other
double-spaced.
one cannot.
Okay.
And I have to say, it's pretty terrific, and it does
is.
break ground. There's a however, which I think this is a really important long-term solution on a number of grants.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest with the public, in terms with interest rates high, energy prices still high, this is not going to be something that all of a sudden is
No.
going to turn around this housing crisis tomorrow or next month or the next month. It's a longer-term solution. Is that a
Right.
fair description?
It is absolutely a fair description. But here's the good news from it. First of all, there are pieces in this bill that are real, they will make a real financial difference and make it fast. A few. Manufactured housing. There's a piece in the bill that changes the requirements for getting access to federal funding when you're doing manufactured housing rather than building on site. The estimates, the experts tell us that that provision alone will drop the cost on average for doing manufactured housing by about $10,000 a unit. There are a lot of places and a lot of new uses where we could be using manufactured housing. And the point is you get a little bit of a snowball going here. You make the financing a little easier and cheaper, and you get a little more innovation. You get people trying, instead of just one-offs, you get them doing, how about we do a whole unit of 20 or 40? So there's some pieces like that. But the way I would describe every part of this bill is it just moves us in the right direction. It's not going to be an overnight change, but it also is the federal government, for the first time in like pretty much forever, saying something besides, damn, price of housing is going up.
Yeah.
That's what the federal government has been doing now for decades. I'm shocked at how high the price of housing is. And this was an effort to say, tell us different ways that we could be helpful. Not one magic bullet that the federal government comes in and makes this big foot change. Much of this started with the mayors of Massachusetts. I was meeting with the mayors of Massachusetts off and on. Well, I've done this ever since I've been in the Senate, but a few years back, we just kept talking about how housing is up, housing is up. And so I said, okay, guys, what do you need? What would work? And the answer turns out that you get in Pittsfield is different from the answer that you get in Somerville.
Yeah.
And that's different from the answer you get in Martha's Vineyard, right? They're all different on where exactly the housing problems are. So that's when, like for me, the light bulb finally goes off and I said, wait a minute. Instead of trying to do the three big things that are going to make the difference, let's put a lot of different ideas together. And the mayors around the country started pitching in their ideas. This bill has ideas, good ideas, that were hammered out from every single Democrat and every single Republican on the Senate Banking Committee. Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs is what that committee technically is. And I look at the bill, and I look at nearly 50 provisions, and some of them I look at and I think, dang, this is going to matter. I see how my folks can use this. I look at others and I think, Everybody in the Senate can do that now. It's just that they have a different group that they look at. But here's the thing. We actually put together a housing bill, bipartisan, a big bipartisan bill, that was not about let's weaken everything down to there will be a study.
Yeah.
We will have a commission to look at the housing problem. We will do nothing, and that's how it is that Democrats and Republicans can sign on. Instead, there was a real momentum for, I've got some things that could matter. No poison pills. There were some things that we just couldn't do and get it across the finish line on both sides. But I've got some things I think will be good, and it created more tolerance for I'll let you do some of the things that you think are good even though they're not exactly how I would have gone. That's a good sign, not just for we did this, but I'm ready for Housing Bill 2.0. We're ready to go again.
We're talking to Elizabeth Warren.
Haven't even got this one across the finish line, but I'm ready to go again.
You know, another thing that's really killing people besides housing is the cost of childcare. I remember when you dipped your hat in the ring and ran for president a few years ago, you talked about, I think it was, you wouldn't have to pay any more than 7% of your salary towards your childcare, and I thought that was a winning issue because it's people's more than their rent and their mortgage in some cases. Mamdani's had some success down in New York City with getting free childcare, and I'm wondering, is there anything, I mean, why can't we get some of that in Massachusetts, and why can't we do that, or will we ever on the federal level?
Right. So you're asking the question, why can't we have nice things?
Yeah, why
Right?
can't we have nice things?
So I want you to know, we live richest country in the world, right? Of the 37 industrial nations, the 37 richest nations in the world, we are number 35 on what we spend on child care for our babies 0 to 5. And I just want to be clear here. We spend money on infrastructure. We build roads and bridges, clean water, electricity. Why? Because we say we want business to flourish in America. We want people to be able to get to work. We want them to be able to do their work. And that's an investment all of us make. Nobody stops and asks the question, well, I'm not sure I'm going to drive on a road in Utah, so I don't want to contribute. We say, nope. We contribute because it helps us all do better as a nation. By golly, universal child care is infrastructure. You want to have mamas and daddies be able to go to work, then they need access to safe, high quality, affordable, accessible child care. I had a whole bunch of small business owners in for a hearing last year. And I asked them, and it really wasn't a setup deal. I said, what is the number one thing the federal government could do to help you in your business? And I thought they'd give me tax stuff or they'd give me regulatory stuff. And the first guy just starts out and he says, my workforce needs childcare. I just lose too many parents because they think they can. I have a young workforce and or they can't do it, they can't show up, they can't afford it. Their childcare costs more than they make working for me. This is an investment we need to make. Now, here's the good news. You ready for some good news?
Yes.
Okay. Some good news. The folks who argued about childcare when Joe Biden was in office, and we didn't get it across the finish line, couldn't persuade the White House, couldn't persuade all the Democrats to get organized, and lost our chance. Now we're saying we're sitting down literally right now, House and Senate side, it's all Democrats, all the Democrats who feel like they want to have a say in this, and we are hammering out the details of the child care bill now. It is my determination that on the first day of a new administration in January 2029, when we have the majority, when that happens, that we will have a child care bill ready to go. And it will be universal. It is not a poverty program. It is a program for every baby. And it's a win-win-win. It's a win for our parents who want to finish their education or go to school. It's a win for our babies that we have real high quality across the board childcare. And it is a win for our childcare workers who do some of the most responsible jobs in our country, that they will be paid commensurate with their training and responsibility. Win, win, win. We're going to do this.
So, Senator Warren, you actually wrote a really interesting piece earlier this year in USA Today with Mamdani about this very subject. But speaking of him, the major topic for talking heads since Tuesday's elections were Mamdani's 3 wins, well, at least a couple of his 3 wins, 2 of them upsetting incumbent members of the House of Representatives, and one woman in particular who has views that a lot of people consider to be extreme. She won the election. And the fear is, government by anecdote, I call it, pioneered by Ronald Reagan, done pretty well by Donald Trump, just like they use trans athletes and $200 million when there are virtually none in high places to help defeat Kamala Harris, that they're going to try to tie all of you and challengers who have a chance to unseat Republicans to the agenda of that woman in New York City. Do you not worry about their ability to do that and undo the optimism that you and others have about November?
Look, that's definitely the move. And our job is just to be prepared and fight back.
How do you fight back?
Well, partly I just want to say, I don't know two of the three, but I do know one of the three that's in the Mamdani sweep, and that's Brad Lander. Brad was the comptroller, in fact, was the comptroller of New York City. I've worked with him for, I don't know, years now. What did he run on? He ran on making New York City affordable, not for billionaires, but making it affordable for working people, which is what Zohran Mamdani ran on, which, as I understand it, are what the other winners ran on. So I think we're seeing two patterns. One that the Republicans are going to want to play. They're going to want to play the, oh, let me tell you a story and it sounds terrible, and the commies are taking over the country, or whatever is their current variation. And the other one is going to be, I hope, our side that keeps saying, look, this economy is rigged. It is rigged by the wealthy and the well-connected. There's one set of rules for the Jeffrey Epsteins and JP Morgan Chases of the world, and an entirely different set of rules for you and your kids. And we have a chance through our elected officials to change that. And don't just listen to rhetoric. This is where I thought Mamdani was brilliant. I have 5 specific things I'm going to deliver that will make a difference in your life. Hold me accountable for that. And a whole bunch of New Yorkers didn't just vote for him. A whole bunch of New Yorkers said, that inspires some hope in me. And I'll get out there and I'll knock on doors for you. I'll get out there and hold signs for you. I will show up for you, and I will show up for my democracy. And then once he won, he starts having town halls again. Basically, they did the renters' hearings so people could come in and participate in their democracy. This is such a crucial midterm coming up. We have a chance to say that we truly are the nation on the 4th of July of we the people, and we are damn well going to take our government back.
And by the way, he got his rent freeze yesterday in New York City.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
he did.
Margaret.
Senator Warren, you've supported Graham Platner's running against Susan Collins up in Maine, even after we found out people probably know he has a Nazi tattoo. He said he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. Some of the women he went out with previously said he was volatile, or then he was sexting women after he was married, all that stuff. You're still with him.
Yeah.
Why?
Look, Graham Platner has said that he is not proud of what he's done in the past. He has taken responsibility, and he said to the people of Maine, I hope you will judge me, not for the worst that I've done, but for the work that I've done since then, for what I'm trying to do now, and for the fight that I'm in. He gets out there every day and meets with the people of Maine. They get to ask him whatever they want to ask him. And he talks with him, and he talks about his past, and he talks about his present. But notice what he's out there fighting for. He talks, for example, about a war halfway around the world. Tens of billions, we don't even know yet, hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent, 14 Americans who have lost their lives, who knows how many, in the Middle East who've been killed. And how is one person, he says, in Maine, I will say in Massachusetts, any better off? They're not. They're worse off. And Graham Platner says he will be in this fight to make this country work, not for a handful of insiders who figured out both how to make a profit off this war, but he will be there to make this country, to fight to make this country work for the working people of Maine. And this is what democracy's about. He's out there talking to him about it.
Okay, before you go, Marjorie told me not to ask this question,
Oh,
but I can't
okay,
help.
definitely do
This
it
is
then.
like an insider kind of thing.
Okay.
We are both fairly news obsessed, like I think most people are here.
Mm-hmm.
The other night, I will not name names unless you ask me to. I'm watching a couple of your colleagues commenting on things I care about, and I have a feeling you care about. These two senators, and let me put this as kindly as I can. Two of the dumbest people I've ever. No, I'm serious. And this is a serious question. I mean, you obviously worked across the aisle in remarkable fashion on this housing thing. How do you deal with your colleagues who just don't even understand? I don't mean they disagree with you. That's one thing. They're entitled. Who literally don't understand what the hell you're talking about. Be honest. How do you do that?
My job is to get as much good done as I humanly can. And I use every tool at my disposal. This is what we talk about in my office all the time. What are your tools? Sometimes the tools are straight to straight, senator to senator. Sometimes they're staff to staff. Sometimes there are other people who influence. But that's the nature of the beast, is I know how to count. I know what it's going to take to get something across the finish line. And I'm looking for the best bill, because this is a lot of work. You better make sure you've got something worth getting out there and fighting for. But if you do, then it's about using every possible tool to get there. I'll give you one small example of this.
Please.
When I was fighting the childcare fight, because I think it's a fight worth having, back during the Biden administration, some of you may remember Joe Manchin.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely would not move. I called one child care provider after another in West Virginia, personally. Asked them about their places, what would make a difference for the children that they're trying to take care of. I talked to one who said her big problem is that she has to pay her people so little that they keep leaving her to work at the gas station next door to try to get these people to talk to Joe Manchin. Now, ultimately, we didn't pull it off. But all I'm saying is, you can't just throw a good idea out there and hope it's going to make it to the United States Congress today.
So
You gotta be
you're
willing to
saying
work.
you don't go home to your husband and say, what a dope. You don't do that?
No, I still do that.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
Damn.
Of course. Elizabeth Warren, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
very
We
much for
appreciate
being
it.